Julian Price tore two buttons from his own shirt, struck his palm across his cheek, and threw open the office door screaming that Arthur Hayes had attacked him. 40 employees turned toward the sound. A security officer moved between them. 10-year-old Lila Hayes stood beside the reception desk with her hospital folder pressed to her chest, watching strangers recoil from her father as if his size had already convicted him. Arthur was 6'4", broad through the shoulders, and still wearing oil-stained navy coveralls. Julian was smaller, polished, and crying on command. The room chose its story in less than 5 seconds. Arthur did not chase him. He did not point at the torn shirt. He kept both hands open where security could see them and looked first at Lila. She was frightened, but she was safe. Then he touched the phone inside his chest pocket. The call had never ended. A quiet voice was still listening from the other side. "Please don't hang up, Miss Ellis," Arthur said. Julian's crying stopped for half a breath. Behind the glass doors of the elevator, a red floor number began counting down. What Julian did not know was that the person on that call had heard the insult, the ripping cloth, the slap, and the lie that followed. Stay with me, because the cruelest performance in that building was about to lose its audience. That morning, before anyone stole a project or manufactured a bruise, Arthur had made pancakes in a kitchen barely wide enough for 2 people. The first pancake always belonged to Lila, even when it came out shaped like the state of Florida. She sat at the small table in purple headphones, drawing faces on a paper napkin, while Arthur packed her medication, a bottle of water, and the blue folder that had become part of their lives. The folder held appointment summaries, insurance letters, therapy schedules, and one estimate Arthur had folded so many times the crease had turned white. Lila had been born with severe hearing loss. Her current processor let her follow a classroom conversation if the room was quiet, but it was failing more often now, cutting voices into pieces and leaving her to guess at the spaces between them. The replacement system and follow-up mapping sessions would cost more than insurance agreed to cover. Arthur never described that amount to her as a crisis. He called it the number they were working on. For 6 months, he had taken every weekend shift available at Argent Components, a manufacturing plant outside Louisville that produced precision housings for medical and aviation equipment. He repaired conveyor drives, calibrated heat sensors, crawled beneath curing ovens, and came home smelling faintly of metal and industrial soap. He was 43, widowed for 4 years, and careful with money in the unromantic way of a parent who knew exactly how many groceries lived inside 1 hour of overtime. The project bonus scheduled for that Friday would cover the processor deposit, the mapping sessions, and most of the unpaid balance from Lila's last evaluation. He had not told her that part. He had only said Friday might be a good day. Lila watched him slide a clean work shirt over his coveralls and raised one eyebrow. "Why are you dressing fancy under the dirty clothes?" she asked. Arthur smiled. "Presentation day." She pointed at the rolled drawings beside the door. "Your heat idea?" He nodded. For nearly 9 months, Arthur had studied the plant's 3 paint-curing ovens during breaks and after shifts. Every cycle released hot exhaust through roof vents while the incoming air had to be heated from the outside temperature all over again. Arthur had designed a heat recovery loop that redirected safe waste heat through a sealed exchanger, reducing gas use without contaminating the production line. He had measured temperatures himself, logged cycle times, mapped shutdown procedures, and tested a small temporary loop with the maintenance crew. The numbers were not magical. They were better than that. They were repeatable. The pilot reduced fuel consumption on Oven 2 by 19% without changing cure quality. Scaled across 3 lines, the system was projected to save $1.6 million over 3 years, with the retrofit paying for itself in 11 months. Arthur had built the cost model with Priya Nanduri, a process engineer, and reviewed the safety interlocks with Luis Ortega, the maintenance supervisor. Every sketch began as pencil on yellow field paper because gloves and tablets did not get along beneath an oven. Later, Arthur transferred the measurements into the company's project portal. The earliest files carried his employee identification, timestamps, and a title he had chosen with Lila at the kitchen table, Closed-Loop Heat Recovery. Julian Price had entered the picture 3 months after the work began. As plant improvement manager, he was supposed to help Arthur turn a maintenance proposal into an executive presentation. Julian had a smooth voice, a silver watch, and the habit of repeating other people's ideas with cleaner verbs. At first, he had been useful. He arranged meetings, secured access to purchasing data, and told Arthur senior leadership would never approve a project unless someone translated it into executive language. Arthur accepted that. He knew machines better than boardrooms. What he did not accept was the way Julian gradually removed names from the work. The first change looked harmless. A shared slide became Operations Excellence Initiative instead of Maintenance Heat Recovery Proposal. Then Priya's calculation note disappeared from the appendix. When Arthur asked about it, Julian said too many contributors made executives nervous. A week later, Julian presented the pilot results to the plant director without inviting Arthur or Luis. He returned from the meeting smiling and said leadership loved our concept. Arthur corrected him quietly. The crew's concept. Julian spread his hands as if the distinction were childish. Of course, we're all one company. It was the first chance Julian had to stop. Arthur asked him to restore every contributor before the final presentation. Julian promised he would. He did not. On Thursday evening, Arthur opened the presentation from a terminal near line 3 and found a title slide that read, Thermal Efficiency Initiative, developed by Julian Price. Arthur's name appeared once in 12 pages, under Installation Support. Priya had vanished completely. The photographs of Arthur's pencil diagrams remained, cropped tightly enough to hide the initials in the bottom corners. The financial summary promised an annual savings figure Julian had inflated beyond the pilot data. Arthur stared at the screen while the production line clicked and hummed behind him. Luis saw his face, read the slide, and swore under his breath. Print the history, Luis said. Arthur shook his head. No, save it correctly. He opened the version panel instead. The portal retained each upload, editor identity, and timestamp. Arthur exported the audit list, then sent Julian a short email requesting a correction before the award meeting. He copied Priya and Luis. Julian replied 14 minutes later, Presentation ownership sits with management. Your technical support is appreciated. Arthur read the sentence twice. Then he forwarded the thread to Renee Ellis, the corporate director of employee relations, whose number appeared on the company's ethics card. He did not accuse anyone of theft. He asked for guidance and attached the version history. Renee called him at 7:40 the next morning, while he was fastening Lila's seatbelt outside the audiology clinic. Her voice was direct and patient. She had reviewed the files and wanted him to avoid confronting Julian alone. She would travel from the regional office and meet him at the plant at 2. Until then, Arthur should preserve the original material and say nothing that might let anyone alter the record. Arthur thanked her. Before the call ended, Renee added one sentence. Mr. Hayes, your contribution is documented. Do not let anyone provoke you into making this about something else. Arthur glanced at Lila through the rearview mirror. I understand. The audiology appointment lasted 90 minutes. Lila sat inside a sound booth and raised her hand when tones reached her through the aging processor. Some tones never did. Arthur watched through the glass as she waited, uncertain whether silence meant she had missed something or nothing had been played. That uncertainty was the part he hated most. After the test, Dr. Miriam Cho explained that the replacement should not be delayed much longer. Lila was compensating by reading lips and context, but fatigue was affecting her schoolwork. The clinic could hold the surgery and fitting schedule until Monday if Arthur could make the deposit by then. Arthur unfolded the estimate. He already knew every number. The project award included a $20,000 innovation bonus divided among the documented contributors. Under the original submission, Arthur's share was $12,000, enough to keep Monday's appointment. Under Julian's final slide, Arthur was support staff and eligible for nothing. Dr. Cho lowered her voice. We can look for another payment plan. Arthur refolded the paper. Give me until Monday. Lila had been watching his mouth. Outside the clinic, she asked, Is your work money supposed to help? Arthur opened the passenger door for her. It's supposed to be fair money for fair work. She considered that. Then make them say your name right. Argent's annual improvement meeting had been designed as a celebration. Banners hung across the main lobby. A catered lunch waited beneath silver covers. The employees from engineering, maintenance, accounting, and production stood around display boards while families were invited to watch the awards. Arthur had planned to leave Lila with his sister, but the clinic ran late and his sister's car would not start, so Lila came with him, wearing a green cardigan over her clinic clothes and carrying the blue folder. The receptionist gave her a visitor badge and a seat near the back where she could see the presentation screen. Julian was already on stage. He wore a charcoal suit and a pale blue tie. Behind him, Arthur's heat loop diagram filled the screen, red arrows tracing exhaust into a sealed exchanger. Julian spoke about a breakthrough I developed after observing inefficiencies on the production floor. He described nights of research he had never done. He accepted applause for measurements Arthur had taken while kneeling beside a furnace. On the front row, the plant director nodded. A finance executive whispered to another and smiled at the projected savings. Arthur stood at the edge of the room in stained coveralls, each lie arriving through the speakers with the confidence of something rehearsed. Lila looked from the screen to the rolled drawing under her father's arm. The diagram was the same, even the small bend in the return pipe, the one Arthur had changed after she said the first sketch looked like a drinking straw, was there. She tugged his sleeve. "Why is his name on your drawing?" Her processor turned the last word sharp enough that several people nearby heard it. Arthur crouched beside her, because he hasn't corrected it yet. Lila looked at Julian, receiving another round of applause. He promised? He had a chance, Arthur said. He still has one more. Julian ended the presentation by thanking senior leadership and the installation staff who assisted with execution. Arthur's photograph appeared in a grid with 6 mechanics, no names. Then the plant director announced that Julian would receive the company's Individual Innovation Award and the full $20,000 bonus. Applause rose again. Julian accepted a glass plaque, held it toward the cameras, and found Arthur in the crowd. His smile changed. It was small, private, and unmistakable. He had not forgotten Arthur. He wanted Arthur to know the erasure was deliberate. Arthur waited until the photographs ended. He walked Lila to the reception desk and asked Carla, the receptionist, if she could sit there for a few minutes. Carla had known Arthur for years and saw enough in his face not to ask unnecessary questions. "She stays with me," Carla said. Arthur handed Lila his unopened bottle of water. "I'm going to speak to Mr. Price. I will be right back." Lila touched the edge of his chest pocket where his phone rested. "Make them say it right," she reminded him. Arthur nodded and crossed the lobby. He caught Julian outside the executive conference room. "We need to talk," Arthur said. Julian glanced toward the employees still gathered around the displays. "Not here." He led Arthur into his office, a glass-walled room overlooking the lobby, then pulled the blinds and shut the door. Arthur noticed both choices. Renee had told him not to confront Julian alone. He had not planned to. Before entering, he had called her number. She answered on the second ring. Arthur said only, "I'm at his office now." Renee replied, "Keep the line open. I'm 8 minutes away." Arthur placed the phone screen down in his chest pocket with the call active. Inside, Arthur remained beside the door. He did not sit. He placed a printed copy of the original submission and the version history on Julian's desk. "Restore the contributors, correct the savings claim, and tell the plant director the award was submitted under false authorship." Julian removed his suit jacket with exaggerated patience and draped it over a chair. "You have no idea how leadership works." Arthur pointed to the first audit entry. "I know how the portal works. My file, my identification, Priya's model, Luis's safety review. Your name appears 3 months later." Julian barely looked down. "And who brought it to people who matter? Who turned grease-stained notes into a fundable project? You would still be measuring vent temperatures on your lunch break if I hadn't packaged it." Arthur's jaw tightened, but his hands stayed open. "Packaging is work. It is not authorship." Julian leaned back against the desk. "You got paid for every hour you spent under those ovens. The award has contributor rules. Rules are interpreted by management. Employee relations is reviewing the files now." That was Julian's second clear chance to stop. He could have called Renee. He could have delayed the award. He could have admitted that credit had been mishandled. Instead, he laughed. It began as a quiet breath and grew until he had to look away. "You called human resources?" he asked. "You think a woman in another office is going to choose a maintenance man over the manager who just saved this plant $1 million? Arthur corrected him. "The project may save the plant money. You didn't build it." Julian stepped close enough for Arthur to smell mint and coffee. His voice dropped. a big man in torn coveralls claiming he designed a seven-figure system. Who is going to believe that once I tell them how you behaved in here? Arthur looked through the narrow gap between the blinds. Lila sat at reception, her green cardigan visible beside Carla's desk. She was watching The Office. He shifted half a step so she could see both of his hands. Open the door, Julian. Julian followed his eyes and noticed Lila for the first time. You brought your daughter to help sell this? Open the door. No, I think we should finish the conversation, you demanded. Julian's expression had changed. The polished friendliness had vanished, leaving calculation without decoration. He reached up and pulled hard at his own shirt. 2 buttons snapped loose and struck the desk. Arthur did not move. Julian rubbed one side of his neck, then dragged his fingernails across the collar until the skin reddened. He watched Arthur's face, waiting for panic. Arthur gave him none. Don't do this, Arthur said. It was not a plea. It was the last warning one adult gives another before a choice becomes permanent. Julian smiled. Now you understand presentation. He struck himself across the left cheek with the heel of his hand. The sound was sharp in the small office. His eyes watered from the impact. He pressed his lip against his teeth until a bright line appeared, then grabbed the chair and knocked it sideways. Arthur stood still, every muscle in his shoulders refusing the instinct to step forward. Julian tore the blinds open. He made sure the lobby could see his shirt and face. Then he yanked the door wide and stumbled out. He attacked me, Julian shouted. Somebody call security. He fell to one knee on the lobby tile and clutched his collar. The celebration broke apart. People rushed toward him. Someone pulled Lila behind the reception counter. 2 employees stared at Arthur emerging from the office as if they had watched the end of a scene instead of arriving after its beginning. Julian pointed a shaking finger. He demanded a raise. He locked the door. He hit me when I said no. The lie was built from facts people could see. Arthur was large. Julian's face was red. A chair lay overturned behind them. The office door had been closed. Julian's expensive shirt hung open at the collar, while Arthur's coveralls bore years of stains that no washing could remove. The crowd supplied the rest. A woman from accounting whispered that Arthur had looked angry during the presentation. A supervisor told others to step back. 3 phones came up to record. The same employees who had applauded stolen work now watched its creator as if he were a threat to the man who stole it. Lila tried to move around the desk. Carla held her gently at the shoulders. My dad doesn't hit people, Lila said. Her voice was louder than she intended because the room had become hard for her processor to separate. No one answered. Julian heard her. He turned his wet face toward the desk and softened his voice for the audience. Sweetheart, I know you want to protect him. The sentence struck Arthur harder than the accusation. Julian was not content to frame him. He wanted to recruit Lila into the performance and make her love look like denial. Security officer Andre Bell arrived from the west corridor with another guard behind him. Andre knew Arthur from night shifts, but he did not pretend that familiarity settled the facts. He stopped 6 feet away and said, Arthur, show me your hands. Arthur raised them slowly. They're open. Did you touch Mr. Price? No. Julian cried harder. He's lying. He came in furious about money. Look at me. Andre glanced at the office, the chair, the broken buttons, then at Arthur's hands. We are going to separate everyone and review this. Arthur, step toward the wall. Arthur obeyed. He could feel Lila watching him. Every movement now taught her something, not about whether the crowd was fair, but about whether another person's lie could take command of his body. He placed one palm against the wall, then stopped before placing the other. My phone is in my chest pocket, he said. It is on a live call with Renee Ellis, Corporate Employee Relations Director. I need permission to reach for it. Andre studied him for 1 second and nodded. Slowly, 2 fingers. Arthur reached into the pocket and removed the phone by its edges. The screen showed a call duration of 11 minutes and 38 seconds. Renee's name appeared above it. Arthur tapped the speaker icon and held the phone flat in his palm. The lobby quieted in uneven rings, nearest people first, then those behind them. Julian's sobs continued 2 beats too long before he realized the sound was now competing with something he could not control. Renee's voice came through the speaker. Officer Bell, this is Renee Ellis, Corporate Director of Employee Relations. I have been on this call continuously since before Mr. Hayes entered the office. I heard Mr. Price refuse to correct authorship records. I heard him insult Mr. Hayes. I heard fabric tear, one open hand impact, furniture move, and Mr. Price say, quote, "Now you understand presentation." I then heard him open the door and accuse Mr. Hayes of an assault that did not occur on this call. Please do not remove either employee until I arrive. I am entering the building now. No music filled the silence. No one applauded. Julian simply stopped crying. The change was so complete that it exposed the performance more clearly than any accusation could. His shoulders lowered. His hand fell away from his torn collar. A tear remained on his cheek, but the face beneath it had gone blank. Around him, the employees who had rushed forward began taking small steps back. One phone lowered, then another. Carla released Lila's shoulders, though the girl remained behind the desk, gripping the blue hospital folder against her chest. The elevator chimed. Renee Ellis stepped out wearing a dark red blazer and carrying a slim laptop bag. Beside her walked Omar Benton from Corporate Information Security. Renee did not hurry toward Julian or Arthur. She approached Andre first, showed her identification, and asked him to preserve the office exactly as it was. Then she turned to Julian. "Do you require medical attention?" Julian swallowed. "He intimidated me." "That was not my question. My face is injured." Renee asked Carla to call the on-site nurse and requested that Julian wait in conference room B with a security officer. She did not fire him in the lobby. She did not turn an allegation into a spectacle simply because the allegation had reversed direction. Julian looked around for the crowd that had carried him seconds earlier. "You're taking his word over mine?" Renee answered. "I am preserving evidence and removing both of you from contact while we conduct a formal investigation. The difference is that I personally witnessed the audio portion of your meeting in real time." Julian pointed at Arthur's phone. "He recorded me without consent. He placed a live call to employee relations after reporting a workplace dispute. I was a participant, not a hidden recording device. The call was not recorded by our office. My notes and testimony will be reviewed with the other evidence." Julian's mouth opened, but the manipulator had run out of useful faces. Renee turned to Arthur. "You will wait in conference room A with your daughter. You are not under discipline. You are being separated as part of the review." Arthur nodded. "Can I speak to her first?" Renee looked toward Lila. "Yes." He crossed the lobby slowly. People made room now, but none of them met his eyes. Lila stepped from behind the desk. She touched his cheek, then his chest pocket, checking what she could verify. "Did she hear?" she asked. "Everything that mattered," Arthur said. Lila looked past him at Julian being escorted away. He made the crying? Arthur crouched until they were eye level. He made a choice. Now other people will check the truth. Inside conference room A, Lila sat beside Arthur with her folder on her knees. Through the glass wall, they watched Omar photograph the office before anyone entered. He collected the broken buttons and documented the chair position. Renee interviewed Carla, Andre, Priya, Luis, and employees who had seen Arthur before and after the meeting. She asked for observations, not opinions. Did anyone see Arthur touch Julian? No. Did anyone see Julian's condition before the office door closed? His shirt and face had been normal. Did the office camera capture the interior? No. But a hallway camera showed Arthur entering with papers in his left hand and his right hand visible. It also showed him leaving without a mark or torn clothing. Then Omar opened the project portal. The audit trail did not need interpretation. Arthur had created the first file 9 months earlier. Priya added the financial model 2 weeks later. Luis uploaded the safety checklist. Julian first accessed the folder after the pilot had already produced results. His edits removed contributor names, cropped signatures from field diagrams, and changed the title. At 11:43 the previous night, he deleted a comment from Arthur that read, "Final authorship must include all contributors." The system retained deleted comments. It retained everything Julian had assumed presentation could erase. Renee asked the plant director to join the review. He entered conference room A, looking older than he had during the award photographs. He placed the glass plaque on the table. "Arthur, I approved a bonus based on a false submission," he said. "I should have verified the contributors." Arthur did not rescue him from the admission. "The system showed you," he said. "Nobody opened the history." The director nodded. "That's true." Lila followed the conversation by watching each face. Then she took one of Arthur's pencil drawings from the roll and placed it beside the printed slide. His initials sat in the lower corner of the original, exactly where Julian had cropped the image. "This is the one from our kitchen," she said. It was a child's contribution, simple and concrete, not legal proof by itself, but a reminder that work had a life before it became a polished lie. The director looked at the pencil marks, the grease shadow along one edge, and the tiny revision Lila remembered. "I see it," he said. Lila answered, "You should have seen it before." Arthur rested a hand lightly on her shoulder. She had not spoken like a lawyer. She had spoken like a 10-year-old who was tired of adults discovering obvious things late. The formal investigation took 4 business days. Arthur was placed on paid administrative leave, a step Renee explained was protective and temporary, not punitive. Julian was suspended pending the outcome. The on-site nurse documented a self-inflicted pattern consistent with the live account, but made no final judgment beyond the medical observation. Information security preserved the portal logs. Legal counsel interviewed Renee and every witness separately. Julian changed his explanation twice. First, he said Arthur had grabbed his collar. Then he said Arthur had shoved the chair into him. Neither claim matched the hallway footage, the office evidence, Renee's contemporaneous notes, or the timing of sounds she heard. On Tuesday morning, Argent Components terminated Julian for falsifying project authorship, retaliating against an employee who raised a protected concern, fabricating a workplace assault allegation, and interfering with an internal review. The company did not publish his humiliation. It issued a short internal notice stating that the award had been rescinded after a verified authorship and conduct investigation. The notice named Arthur, Priya, Luis, and the maintenance crew as contributors to closed-loop heat recovery. The $20,000 bonus was divided according to the original project record, with Arthur receiving the share he had earned. The plant director asked Arthur to attend a second ceremony. Arthur declined. "Put the names on the project page," he said. "Pay the crew correctly. That's enough." He did agree to one meeting with the executive team where he explained the design, corrected Julian's inflated savings claim, and answered questions about safety. He wore clean coveralls. Lila watched from the same reception desk, this time with the new processor appointment confirmed in the blue folder. When the executives applauded, Arthur raised one hand and pointed toward Priya and Luis. "It works because people checked each other's work," he said. "That's the part you almost erased." Luis asked permission to say something before they left. He admitted that he had noticed the names disappearing weeks earlier, but told himself Arthur could handle Julian better alone. Priya admitted she had been angry when her model vanished, yet she stayed silent because Julian approved engineering assignments. Neither confession changed what Julian had done, but Arthur appreciated that they named their own choices without turning them into excuses. "Next time," he said, "don't wait for the person losing the most to be the only one speaking." The plant director asked whether Arthur wanted a formal promotion into project management. Arthur considered it, then requested a different role, senior technical lead, with authority to review field innovations while remaining on the floor. He did not want a title that moved him away from the machines or the people who understood them. Argent changed 3 procedures after the investigation. New innovation submissions required contributor confirmation before an award could be approved. Deleted comments remained visible to reviewers by default. Any employee reporting credit theft or retaliation could request a second person or an open door during a management meeting. The changes did not transform every workplace in America. They changed one plant where a polished manager had believed a closed door gave him control over reality. That was smaller than a revolution and more useful than a speech. Julian appealed his termination through the company's process. An outside reviewer upheld it. He was not arrested in the lobby, and his life did not collapse overnight. He lost the position he had abused and the professional trust attached to it. The false assault claim was documented in his employment record, while local authorities reviewed the security report and decided the evidence did not support a charge against Arthur. Arthur received a written clearance and a personal apology from Andre, who said, "I followed procedure, but I saw the room decide before I asked a question." Arthur shook his hand. "You asked the question anyway. Keep doing that." The harder apologies came from employees who had surrounded Julian. Some were sincere, some were attempts to escape their own discomfort. Arthur listened without making each person feel better. Carla apologized for holding Lila behind the desk, even though she had been trying to protect her. Lila answered before Arthur could. "You kept me away from everybody running," she said. "That part was okay." Then she added, "But next time, listen before you look scared." Carla nodded with tears she did not manufacture. That evening, Arthur and Lila sat on the apartment floor, sorting the hospital papers into two piles: keep and finished. The deposit estimate went into finished. The insurance appeals stayed in keep. Lila found the photograph someone had taken during Julian's award presentation. In it, Julian held the plaque under bright lobby lights, while Arthur stood blurred near the edge of the frame. She studied the picture, then turned it face down. "Were you scared when everybody believed him?" she asked. Arthur did not give her the easy answer. "Yes, I was scared they would put hands on me before they listened. I was scared you would remember me looking dangerous instead of careful." Lila leaned against his shoulder. "I remember your hands were open." Arthur closed his eyes. Of everything the crowd had chosen to see, his daughter had noticed the one detail he most wanted her to carry. He told her courage did not always feel like confidence. Sometimes it was a list of small decisions made while fear argued for something faster. Call for help before entering, keep the line open, stand near the door, show both hands, ask permission before reaching into a pocket, let evidence move at its own speed. None of those decisions looked heroic. Together, they kept Julian from turning Arthur's anger into a prop. Lila listened, then asked whether she should always stay calm when someone lied about her. Arthur shook his head. "You can be angry. You can speak loudly if you need help. Calm is a tool, not a rule, people get to use against you. The important part is choosing what helps the truth get heard." On Monday, Arthur and Lila returned to the audiology clinic. He paid the deposit with the project bonus, then sat beside her while Dr. Cho fitted the upgraded processor behind her ear. The first mapping was not a miracle. Sounds arrived too bright and too close. Paper crackled like fire. The air vent roared. Lila winced, laughed, and asked for the volume to come down. Dr. Cho adjusted the settings one frequency at a time. Arthur said her name from across the room. Lila turned before looking at his mouth. Her eyes widened. "Say it again." Arthur swallowed. "Lila," she smiled. It was not the dramatic smile of someone hearing for the first time. She had heard him all her life in fragments, through devices, lip reading, memory, and love. This time his voice reached her with fewer missing pieces. She crossed the room and wrapped her arms around his waist. Arthur held her carefully, his chin resting above her hair. On the drive home, Lila watched rain gather on the passenger window. After a while she asked, "Do fake tears still count as tears?" Arthur thought before answering. "The water is real," he said. "The reason can still be false." She turned that over. "So how do you know?" "You don't always know right away. You check what happened. You listen to more than the loudest person." Lila nodded. Then she tapped the new processor gently. "Good thing this helps with listening." Arthur laughed. The first easy laugh he had given himself all week. At home, the original pencil diagram went back into the kitchen drawer. Arthur did not frame it. He still had revisions to make before the full retrofit, and tools mattered more to him when they could be used. On the corner of the newest drawing, beneath his own initials, he wrote 3 more sets, PN, LO, and MC, for Priya Nanduri, Luis Ortega, and the maintenance crew. Then Lila added a tiny loop beside the return pipe, the same bend she had noticed months earlier. Arthur looked at the mark and left it there. Julian had believed the person who controlled the room controlled the truth. He had built his lie out of clothing, size, tears, and the speed with which crowds choose a side. But truth had been waiting in quieter places, an open phone line, a version history, a child's memory of a kitchen drawing, and a father disciplined enough not to give a liar the reaction he needed. Arthur did not win because people finally discovered he was powerful. He won because he preserved what was true, while someone else performed what was false. Lila slid the drawing back toward him. "Now everybody's name is right," she said. Arthur looked at the initials, then at his daughter, hearing the soft scratch of pencil against paper more clearly than she had the week before. "Yeah," he said. "Now it is. Some people steal work. Some steal trust." Julian tried to steal both, then used tears to steal the room. He forgot that a room can change its mind when someone has the patience to bring evidence through the door. If this story stayed with you, subscribe and share it with someone who believes calm is weakness. Sometimes calm is the one thing a lie cannot use.